We are going to review the 3-day diet analysis project. So specifically part 1, we'll touch on part 2 just so you know why you're doing part 1. And then I'll just briefly mention part 3, but just to give you some more specific guidelines here and clear up any confusion. Basically, you're going to be analyzing your own personal diet for 3 days. So basically, you want to track your food and beverage intake as well as your exercise and activity for 3 days. So try to include days that are a little bit more like your usual days. So I usually recommend doing 2 weekdays, 1 weekend day, or 2 work days, 2 non-work day, or 1 non-work day, just so you have that variety as well as the typical. So whatever works for you, but just make sure it's within the 1 week period and you're doing 3 full days. So make sure you're being pretty specific just about how things are prepared, the amounts. So with, for example, with proteins, how is it prepared? Is it baked? Is it fried? For example, and then with different milks and things like that, what percent milk is it? Is it non-fat? Is it 1%, 2%? So how the food is prepared is going to be important to note. With most fast foods and restaurants, you can just note what restaurant or fast food establishment and what you ordered. Make sure you do note kind of how much or size of things. If it's a more local restaurant or not so much of a chain, you might need to more so write the ingredients because it may not be listed on a tracker, which we'll cover in part 2. But just try to make sure you have the details of what you ate at those restaurants. And then already mentioned how things are prepared. If you are cooking or making a recipe, make sure you are breaking down the ingredients. So for example, if you had a taco, what does that look like, right? Is it a corn tortilla? Is it a flour tortilla? How big is that? What's inside the main ingredients? I don't need spices and things like that, but the actual ingredients inside of that recipe, including marinades, sauces, things like that, definitely list those out and how much you used. If you had 2 tacos, what is in those 2 tacos? And then the amounts. This is going to be a big one, but try to estimate the amounts as best you can with everything that you're eating. Grains are typically in cups. Proteins are more in ounces. If it helps, typically like the size of a deck of cards is about 3 ounces of protein. So are you having 3, 6, 9? What does that look like? So make sure you're putting the amounts. You have a sample menu format, but basically I just want to know the date and then what meal it was, what time, and then what you ate and the amounts of that for each time you eat throughout the day. So make sure you're listing that out. And then for each day as well, for all 3 days, I would like a exercise/activity record as well. So there's a sample here, but basically the amount of time you spent doing what activity, and then if applicable, the intensity of that activity. So for part 1, you're just submitting that log. So those 2 examples of here's my food log, here's my activity log, day 1, day 2, day 3, submit. So the reason we would like all those specifics is because for part 2, you are going to use a free nutrition tracker. So for example, MyFitnessPal, to record all of that. So basically you'll create an account, you go to food diary, and then you're going to input everything from that log into this. So for example, breakfast, if you had oatmeal, how much, right? Was it 1 cup dry, or did you measure it after you cooked it? And then you'll just click, say, add food. Say you had banana with it, right? You can search that food. It's going to ask for the amount. So 1 medium, did you have 1 banana or did you have half of it? So again, that's kind of why you are putting all those details into your part 1. Once you've inputted all of your food for the day, you'll do that for all 3 days. You will go down to the bottom to see view full report. You'll click that. It's going to ask you a date range. So ideally you'll put the 3 days that you put in. So if it's, for example, if it's 7/14 to 7/16, whatever your dates are, the date range that you inputted those on, it doesn't matter if you put them on the exact date that you had them, just the 3 days. It's going to give you your full record here. So obviously you'll have a full day, not just the breakfast there, but you will PDF that, and that's what you'll be submitting for part 2. So just the PDF of that after you've inputted all of your things. So that should give you a little bit more information for part 1 to go on. And then this will be part 2. Part 3, you're basically just going to be analyzing this. So you're going to kind of just look at what your nutrient intake was and kind of analyze it. But these are the part 1 and part 2 more detailed instructions. Let me know if anybody has any questions. Feel free, again, email me in the Canvas inbox, and I'm happy to answer any questions.